The Ontario government's 87-page long-term energy plan aims to deliver clean, reliable, and affordable energy to the province, all while reducing projected cost increases by more than $16 billion over the next 4 years. Will the government be able to deliver on these power promises? Well, let's find out. Joining us now to help answer that question, Judith Lipp. She is chair of the Federation of Community Power Cooperatives. Mark Winfield, he's associate professor and co-chair of the Sustainable Energy Initiative at York University. George Vague, he's the head of McCarthy Tetro's Energy Regulatory Practice. Paul Accione, he is the president and chair of the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. And Don DeWeese, he's professor emeritus of economics at the University of Toronto. And it's great to assemble you five around this table here as we consider this. Achieving Balance is what it's called, Ontario's long-term energy plan. I just want to go around the table and get some initial feedback from all of you as to what you think they've got in this and whether it meets the needs. Paul, start us off.
Well, I think there's some good things in the plan. I went over it yesterday. I like particularly the community planning program that they've laid out. I think a lot of communities have congestion on the grid, and they can generate some of their own power will be a lot cheaper than trying to bring it in and trying to get transmission upgraded. There's some things I don't like in the plan.
Like?
Well, the conservation first, I don't like because if you use less power, prices are going to go up because you still have to cover the fixed costs that they've signed the contracts for. We have a surplus right now of generation.
Unlike the regular laws of supply and demand.
We'll talk about that if you want a little more later, and I'll tell you why it's going backwards. It's perverse.
Okay, more to come on that. Oh, do you want one more?
And a couple of things that are missing in the long-term energy plan that I think needs to be addressed. We can talk about that later.
Okay, deal. George.
Well, I come to this from the perspective of being skeptical of central planning in the electricity system because it involves a choice of technologies and and having to forecast demand, et cetera, which I think is very difficult. So I have some concerns about this because it is pretty prescriptive, so much wind, so much biomass, so much nuclear, et cetera. Having said that, I think there are some benefits in this plan compared to previous plans. It does seem to have more flexibility and more of a focus on information. So I think it tries to mitigate some of the issues around long-term planning, but I think the choices around technology are still pretty tough to make.
Okay. Judith.
Well, I think the government's got a tough job whenever the energy file is being reviewed, so I want to commend them on coming up with a balanced approach. I'm not always in agreement with where they've struck that balance. I think I guess the strength for me, contrary to what Paul's saying, I think conservation first is, in fact, crucially important going forward, and I'm glad to see that that's finally happening. Renewables, there's not much commitment to it, so the perspective I come at this from is representing communities who want to develop their own projects. The cap, essentially at 10,700 megawatts to 2021, doesn't actually provide a lot of room for growth.
Fast follow-up here. You say there's not enough commitment to it, but the energy minister does say he wants Ontario to be 50% reliant on electricity created by renewable sources by the year 2025. That sounds like a commitment. What
I'm saying is he hasn't extended the commitment that was made a good 7-8 years ago. So that target hasn't changed. When that target was introduced, it was to provide, to stimulate an industrial policy in Ontario for green energy. What we're seeing is that the industry is really not, it doesn't have that much confidence in that anymore unless those targets start to be extended. So committing to refurbishing nuclear is essentially setting us down a path that sort of ties us into a future that doesn't leave room for more than 50% renewables.
Okay, more to come on that. Mark.
I think the conservation first piece is interesting, but how they're going to operationalize that is still very much an open question. I agree with Judith that in terms of the technological choices, the big loser is renewables, the big winner is nuclear. The big question in my mind still, though, is the issue of the demand forecast. I think the demand forecast here is still very high. I think, and in fact, I think what they've done is their demand forecast minus what they think will come from conservation is, in my mind, actually a more realistic demand forecast, which is essentially a flat line. So I think the risk here for overbuild, particularly with the commitment on the nuclear refurbishments, I think is still quite significant, and that carries with it considerable cost risk.
Okay, Don.
I think they're on the right track, and I disagree a bit with my colleagues. I like the demand in Ontario is uncertain. I agree with Mark on that. And it's going to become, and our supply is becoming more uncertain with wind and solar increasing. They're unreliable. We don't know when they're going to be on and off. With that, we need a more flexible supply. We need to be ready for anything. And so I'm glad that they're reducing the nuclear share. I'm glad they're increasing the gas share. That gives us more flexibility for the future. I disagree with Judith, I guess, on the renewables. I'm delighted that they're reducing the share of renewables because we've paid a fortune for some very expensive renewables in the past. We can't afford that. I would like to see us constrain what we're spending on renewables. I'm in favor of renewables, but I'm not in favor of wasting money.
Quick follow-up on that. You heard the minister a moment ago say, yes, we've spent more developing renewable energy sources, but in the long run, it's not going to cost more, because think of all the money we're not spending on health care because people aren't going to die from, breathing polluted air anymore.
But the main pollution problem came from coal, and natural gas emits almost none of the harmful pollutants that coal emits. So going from coal to gas largely deals with the air pollution problem. It leaves some CO2, but largely deals with the air pollution problem. And renewables have a much tougher time competing against gas than they did against coal for that reason.
Judith, would you agree with that?
Well, I think what we're seeing actually is the cost, the price point for renewables is dropping really fast. And I also actually think what we're seeing, we're seeing a trend towards microgrids, distributed generation that could actually turn the whole electricity sector on its head within 20 years.
A microgrid being?
A microgrid is where you essentially have generators, consumers producing power on site. It negates the need for long-distance transmission. They're now, through smart grids, smart technologies, you can now control when your systems are operating, powering up and down. So it's essentially the idea of a mini utility, but at a micro scale. And we're seeing a trend in Europe, in several US jurisdictions, where already the utilities are beginning to question their own business model. And the one thing I would say that I strongly think is encouraging about this plan is that there's flexibility built into it. And I think that's crucially important, because I actually think the trends out there towards innovation, smart grids, new technologies, akin to what we've seen in cell phone technology, internet, home computers, I think that's happening in the electricity sector, and we need to be creating a system that's open to that innovation, not building long-term, fixed fixed plants that are tying us in for long-term.
Okay.
So.
Let me follow up on the first, what felt like point of departure among you, which is this conservation first, as the minister calls it. I guess he thinks we're not going to have to build as much as we previously had thought, because people will use less, conserve more, and that will obviate the need for this new build. For example, $16 billion worth of nuclear build. Paul, you have a problem with this. How come?
Because we're not an island. We opened up our borders to competition. And if we allow electricity rates to get out of hand, they're currently double what they are in Quebec, and 20% above what they are in Michigan, and double what they are in Manitoba. If we're not careful, what we'll do is we'll lose all the manufacturing and industrial jobs in Ontario. We've lost enough of them already. We don't need to lose any more. And those are all our middle-class jobs. So, yeah, you can be pure and go 100% with renewables, but the price of power is going to go through the bloody roof. And that'll kill your manufacturing and industrial sector. So without jobs, can you afford any electricity?
But why does that have anything to do with conservation? Isn't conservation in and of itself a good thing?
Well, the problem is that the easiest or the low-lying fruit on conservation is to turn the lights off at night. And at night, we've got clean power, nuclear and hydraulic, and we're spilling it because we're not using enough of it. So you might as well use it and pay for it. What's the point saving more if you've got too much generation that's clean?
Well, presumably you don't use it if you don't need it because you don't want to pay for it, right?
Well, hang on. Industry would be willing to use it if you give it to them at what it costs to produce, which is 5.8 cents, but they're paying 11.
Gotcha. George?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the challenge is conservation has value, but it really has value if it can displace supply. And if you're pursuing both supply and conservation, then you're not getting the value of either. And that's kind of the challenge in electricity planning, in particular when the government is making these sorts of choices, it's difficult to say no to anybody. So you say yes to the renewables, yes to the nuclear developers, yes to the conservation groups, and you end up in a situation where we are now with surplus. If you did have a scenario where you could actually displace supply through conservation, which I think you can do physically, but it's been difficult to do that politically, then I think it can bring a lot of value to the system.
Conservation first, you okay with that?
I think so. I think it improves energy productivity, it improves competitiveness. And I think we need to keep in mind that we are in a position still to make choices about supply. Because if we can do conservation, if we can be more energy efficient, and there's lots of evidence, there's lots of potential to do that, then we still have opportunities to reconsider on supply. This is what makes the nuclear refurbishments particularly tricky, because they are effectively what would be competing with conservation in terms of where we want to go. Because if we can do conservation, then we may not need to do those refurbishments, which are likely to be very expensive. Exactly how expensive they're going to be, we don't know.
But the minister has said, conserve more, and we don't have to spend money to build brand new plants. Conserve more, and we can just refurbish some of what we've got, keeping in mind we're going to lose Pickering in a few years, right?
Yes.
2020, they're going to shut down the Pickering stations.
Yes.
So doesn't that meet some of your requirements there?
It meets some, but I think we can do better. I mean, the problem is we've not pursued this very effectively or very systemically, particularly relative to people like California or British Columbia, who really have pursued conservation-first strategies. And California has been at it for 35 years, and they're still finding cost-effective conservation opportunities.
Don, what about it?
I think the problem, I like conservation, I think the problem with it is how do we actually deliver it? What programs does it take to get people to do the things that they haven't done that look as if they would be cost-effective? And jurisdictions all over the world have struggled with that. Consumers aren't fully informed, or there are actually barriers, real reasons not to do it, that don't show up in the cost figures.
Well, they got an app now. You heard about this, eh?
I know they have apps, and I think that's helpful.
They got an app where you can check and see what your power usage is, and I presume the idea being you can see when it spikes and you can do something about it, presumably, and conserve more.
Sure, I think that's very helpful. And I know of cases where that sort of display has led people to say, what happened there that our usage just went up? Oh, that thing turned, does that use all that much power?
Right.
It makes a big difference. But that will make a difference for a set of consumers, not for all of them. And some people have the opportunity, some don't. So I'm happy they're pursuing conservation. On the nuclear side, I was interested in the minister's comment, and it's consistent with what's in the plan, that he says they're going to be cautious about these refurbishments. They will ask for bids, and they'll watch what happens, and if the costs get out of control, and if it runs over time, then they'll shut it down.
And nothing until 2016, I think, right? That's the first year they'd plan to do anything on the refurbishing side.
Yes, there's some planning that's needed. And if he's serious about that, then if those of us who have concerns about the cost of nuclear, if we're right, we're not going to have as much supply as is in the plan. What I didn't hear him say is, suppose that the first couple of refurbishments go seriously off track, and the government sticks with its commitment not to continue doing really expensive refurbishments, then what fills the gap? That's why I like some flexibility in supply, because we just don't know where we're going to be in 2018 or 2020 once we get some experience with those early refurbishments.
Is that a problem, Paul, where you say, I mean, he sat in that chair and he said a few minutes ago, we'll go down this road to refurbishments, and if they go over time and over budget, we stop it right there.
Well,
can you really do that?
And yeah, sure. We did 2 units at Pickering A, and we put 2 units out of service. We basically decommissioned them because it was too expensive to do the next 2. So it's possible. But the thing to remember is, what are your goals from the energy system? Are your goals low GHG emissions? The only way you're going to achieve low GHG emissions is to have backup for the renewables, which is 0 GHG. And right now, there's only 2, storage and flexible nuclear. Flexible meaning, well, hydro, we don't have any more hydro. We've used up pretty much most of it. The stuff in Northern Ontario is too expensive to bring down here. So,
well, we could a number of options that way.
well,
Okay, let's start. Options. Go ahead.
Well, if we're talking about low GHG options, You need some storage, and that's a weakness in the plant because the technology there is moving very, very quickly, and Ontario has been very slow there. The other big option that's out there that matches potentially well with our need to deal with intermittency and renewables, of course, is what's happening across the border in Quebec, where Quebec's spot market for hydro exports has crashed in the past few years.
So we should just buy it from them?
Well, we should have a conversation with them because they have exactly the kind of storage we need. And they've gone from getting 12 to 14 cents a kilowatt hour to 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt hour on the spot market. So if there was ever a time to have a conversation with Quebec about that possibility, now might be the time because their market has crashed because of the fracking boom south of the border.
Judith, options?
Yeah, I mean, that was really my point, is that we do have neighbors on either side, Manitoba, Quebec. Right now, that power's been going south. There's no reason we can't have that dialogue in Canada to say, we need the power, what have you got, what kind of supply do you have?
Do you worry that that makes Ontario not self-sufficient when it comes to energy if we need to rely on other jurisdictions to keep the lights on?
We're relying on other jurisdictions for the natural gas. We relied on other jurisdictions for the coal. We're relying on other jurisdictions for the uranium. The only thing we have in province is
I asked you, but he's answering the question. That's all right.
He's doing a great job.
Didn't mean to jump in.
Okay, Paul,
How do you move it?
how do you move?
How do you move 7,000 megawatts? The lines aren't there.
You can't transmit it from Manitoba to
No,
here?
there's only 2,000. Well, hang on. Manitoba, the lines are even smaller. Quebec, there's only 2,000 megawatts of transfer capability. You're going to need 7,000 or 8,000 megawatts to displace all of the nuclear.
And surely, if, in the time that you can refurbish a nuclear plant at unknown cost, you could probably extend the lines and build out. I mean, again, we're talking about a technological barrier here, which has solutions.
We couldn't build a transmission line into Newmarket. They took a gas plant instead. Do you think you're going to get a monster transmission line from northern Quebec to Toronto? On top of that, you're going to want the power when Quebec is delivering its peak. We want it during our peak, that storage. So we're going to want the power at the same time Quebec is delivering peak, which means they may not have the generating capability at the dams to meet our peak plus their peak.
Okay,
But
George.
I just want to say, I think we're getting from the discussion, every source of electricity supply has problems. And nuclear has a problem because you need a long-term capital investment and you need to commit up front and you're not sure what demand forecast is going to be, and intermittence problems with renewables. I disagree. I think imports are available. There is import capacity to come in for Quebec to deal with even long-term or short-term. So I think what this question really comes down to, and we'll get into a discussion I'm sure, is how do you choose between these different imperfect supply sources? Because everyone will have their favorite and everyone has hair on it.
Don.
One of the things the plan says is that for renewables larger than 500 kilowatts, they're not going to use the feed-in tariff, the fixed price that we set in advance that all comers can take. Instead, they'll use a competitive bidding process. They'll issue requests for proposals. And what I would like to see is for those requests for proposals to be broad. So if we need baseload supply, let's have a request for clean power, for baseload clean power, and let Quebec Hydro compete with wind and solar and whoever else has clean hydro. And in fact, let natural gas compete, but give them a penalty of $25 per ton of CO2 or $50, whatever we think is the right price. And that way, that deals with George's concern. The government isn't choosing the technology. The government is saying what its goals are. Or the procurer, the OPA probably, is saying what the goals are. And then that's when we would have the conversation with Quebec.
Should nuclear be part of that bidding process too?
Nuclear seems to be on a different track. I would like
But I would think it should be, though.
In principle, I would like to see nuclear compete that way. I think the industry will say that's completely out of the question. We can't do it. But I would like to see some sort of balancing where for those things, we have this competitive process, and then we turn to nuclear and say, can you beat this? Even if we need a different contractual arrangement, are they in the ballgame? Because in the long run, I'm not persuaded that we can't get a lot of power from Quebec, build that power line if we have enough time.
Yeah. Well, I like what Don's saying, which is essentially we need price transparency, and that's essentially the problem that we have in Ontario, is that nobody really understands what the true price of relative technologies are. We're not factoring all the costs. Nuclear is, we see one price for building, we see no price at all for decommissioning long-term storage solutions. insurance issues, et cetera. So I feel that, again, either we're going to have a fully open and transparent conversation about our options, and then together we can make an informed choice, or we have certain technologies that are in a black box because they're politically or industrially favored, and other technologies are pitted against that, and we have an apples to oranges comparison. And I think that's really the disservice that's been happening in this province, and why it's become such a contentious issue around price, because nobody actually knows the full cost of the relative technologies.
Let me follow up on that, because you talked about price a moment ago, and I think we need to have a bit of a conversation. There's that word again. It's become the word of the month around Queen's Park, right? We're going to have a conversation around that. This new plan thinks it's done a pretty good job taking costs out of the system, thereby keeping a lid on prices. I know you think the price of electricity is already far too high and makes us uncompetitive in the province, but given where we were and given where this plan envisages us being, how's it doing?
Well, it's better than the original plan. Like I said, there's some good things in the plan. They've taken some cost pressures out of the system, but they haven't dealt with the fundamental problem. One of the systemic problems is how our electricity market works. It's perverse. And they've designed an electricity marketing system that works when there's no what they call global adjustment mechanism. But we have a global adjustment mechanism to make sure that people don't lose any money on signed contracts, fixed price contracts. And that distorts the entire market. It means when people aren't using the power, the price goes up, which is crazy. There's no corrective mechanism in the market to take care of the problem.
Doesn't exactly follow supply and demand,
No, it's in economics 101. We built an electricity market that breaks fundamental law of economics. And we can do that if we want, if we were an island, but we're not an island. We're trading with the Americans, and we're driving up our electricity prices, and we're exporting our surplus at 2.5 cents roughly per kilowatt hour to our competitors.
Although the minister says we're still making a profit on it.
Of course, because he's looking at the wholesale price, and the IESO makes a profit on the wholesale price. How about the GA? It's 3 times bigger than the wholesale price. That gets charged to Ontario consumers only.
What do you think of this, economics professor?
We have a problem. We are exporting power at a low price. We have, because of the slowdown in the Ontario economy, we have excess supply now. I think the minister took a little too much credit for solving the supply crunch that we had in 2002 to 2004. The economy,
slowed down,
unfortunately,
and that took care of it.
Took care of part of it, and we got some nukes back in operation. So it was a combination. But we've. I agree with Paul that we need to work on a better pricing mechanism. In a sense, this document didn't address that, and I would like to see the IESO or whoever try to figure out a way so that in the short run, industry has incentives. Everybody has incentives to save electricity when it's expensive, and not so much when it's inexpensive.
Well, George, let me try this. We're going to the markets for $1 billion a year, right? We're borrowing $1 billion a year to subsidize the cost of electricity rates and keep them lower than they might otherwise be. Don Drummond, in his report almost 2 years ago now, said that is a waste of money. Discourages conservation, which I suspect Mark would sign on to as well, and we can't afford it if we're trying to balance the books. What's your view on it?
Well, it's hard to argue that we should be borrowing money to pay for electricity consumption. I guess when you look at the big picture, when that came in, that was, I think, at the same time as harmonizing the HST, so that was applying to electricity for the first time. So if you see it as a way of transitioning the application of HST to electricity, which went fairly smoothly in Ontario, so if you take a broader picture, you can see the rationale for having done that, but they are committed to winding that down. So while I'm not in favor of it, I can understand why they did it. At the time as more of a transition around the HST.
But do you want to keep doing it we have a $12 billion deficit in this province. Is that something we should keep doing?
No, absolutely not. So I think it was a transitional model, and it should run its course when it's completed.
It's like transitional, like income tax was transitional?
I'm not going to defend the benefit. I'm just giving the explanation of it. In terms of using market forces to try to bring about greater price fidelity and price transparency, the major problem we have is that we have costs that are baked into the system, and they have to be collected from the entire system. So you know, if someone is successful at conservation, whether through behavior or through efficiency technology, that just will tend to transfer the cost to somewhere else in the system, because right now they're baked in. I think, to be fair to the plan, they are looking at things such as capacity markets and having better information so that there could be more price responsiveness to the system, say on a going forward basis, but we do have a lot of fixed costs in the system that have to be spread. But for new builds and for next steps that haven't been committed yet, I think there is some discussion around looking for different ways to approach supply.
Mark, I don't want to sound like I really don't want to sound like a smart aleck here, but we've got a lot of different priorities that we're trying to juggle, and I'm trying to figure out if they've hit the right mix here. On the one hand, you can't have electricity prices going through the roof because people will lose their homes. You can't have prices going through the roofs because then businesses will go out of business or they won't come here in the first place. On the other hand, we're not paying, it doesn't sound like, close to the real price of power. Too many people aren't paying close to the real price of power, which therefore doesn't really encourage much conservation. So what do we do?
You get rid of the clean energy benefit to start with.
So you would get rid of it?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about that. It doesn't make any sense. It's adding $1 billion to the provincial deficit. It doesn't really help, as it just reallocates the cost somewhere else, which is no help at all. So on that front, that would be a first step, but I think you need to operationalize the conservation first component in some sort of real way, because that is also a very effective way of dealing with the cost question. Is yes, per unit cost may be going up, but if you can get your consumption down per unit of output or activity, then your total energy bill essentially stays static, and that's part of how you manage that problem.
But tell me this, they say, I guess they say, you know, you raise the price of gas enough and people will drive less. They'll figure out a way to drive less. Is it the same thing for heating your home?
Price is a signal, but it's not the only tool that you use. When you're doing conservation, what you need to do is really a regime, a combination of different tools. In fact, probably what will turn out to be the most important, and certainly has been the case in California, has been standards and codes. That you push low efficiency air conditioners, refrigerators, other things out of the marketplace. That's where they got 50% of their progress on conservation.
How much of that have we done?
We are allegedly trying to match California. How well we do it is an open question. We tend to be a bit slow, and we've been very uncreative on the other side of the ledger, which is the sort of active conservation programming from the local distribution utilities. We've been very, very constrained in terms of what we've let the local utilities do. They're essentially tied to a cookbook that comes from the province, and no innovation is allowed. And one of the things that the province seems to be hinting at is we might let the Toronto Hydros and the Power Streams and some of the others who want to be more creative on the conservation side and have some interesting ideas, give them some space to work with, which at the moment they're not getting.
Paul, can we get rid of this clean energy benefit and still have our electricity rates be affordable and or competitive?
I've got bad news for you.
Tell me.
You have two consumers in Ontario, those that can't leave, that live here, and those that can leave, business. If you charge business too much, they'll leave, and there won't be any income for those that have to stay. So in my view, we wanted a clean grid. We wanted a grid that was even cleaner than we had in 2009, and at that time we were the cleanest mixed generation grid in North America because of our nuclear and hydraulic generation.
But we still had some coal in there, didn't we?
We had some coal. We didn't use it much, just during the day for peaking. So we could have converted that to gas, and it would have been a done deal. But we went off and decided to join the world on these green jobs, which, look, there's nothing wrong with green energy, but it's more expensive, let's face it. So we've driven the cost of electricity up, and we've given the Clean Benefit Act to the guys who can't leave. But the guys who can leave, we give them nothing. Well, we discounted their rate a bit, but not a lot.
So should have done it the other way around?
Well, in my view, yeah, because if I can't leave and I work, I can pay more for my electricity. But if I lose my job, how am I going to pay my bills? So I'd rather the clean benefit go to industry and let me pay if I have a job.
Okay, Winfield's not sure about this.
Well, I'm not sure on multiple fronts. One was, in effect, industry did get a clean energy benefit. It got a special rate, and there are special rates for the north as well. But if you look at what
That's
actually...
what I heard. Mark, I got to say, Northern Ontario, we hear from them a lot. This is TVO. They say that the benefit that northern businesses got Doesn't come close to helping them compete with Quebec and Manitoba.
Although their problems are more than their electricity rates, there are other problems that they're facing in terms of markets for forest products and things like that
Of course.
well. It's a complex set of questions in Northern Ontario, of which electricity rates are only one component of
But a
that
big
story.
component.
But if you look at what the drivers of the cost increases so far have been, if you look at what actually makes up the global adjustment, it's been nuclear, and it's been gas, and it was, to a certain degree, coal, although that's coming off. The renewables so far have actually been a very small component. They're about 17%. And that included some of the hydro projects.
But
Nuclear
moving
was
to 50,
42%.
they say moving to
Well,
50.
I'm still trying to figure out how that math works, to be honest, given the cap on the renewables component. Keep in mind, half of that is actually hydroelectric. When they give that figure, and most of that is refurbishing or simply continue to operate existing facilities, which are very, very low cost. So we need to be a little bit careful there, and there is uncertainty because we don't have a good handle on nuclear costs. At least with the renewables, we at least had a ceiling with the FIT, which we've also taken steps to correct. With nuclear, we didn't have a ceiling. We had an open bleed, some of which has still been happening.
Let me get Judith to respond to Paul's point, which is if anybody should have got a big clean energy benefit, it should have been the businesses that can go as opposed to the people who can't. What's your view?
I don't know enough about that particular area.
Do you like the clean energy benefit?
Well, I think it's important to support communities and families that can't manage with their bills. I do think there's other ways of managing. Again, coming back to a more comprehensive conservation approach, which what Mark is talking about is a market transformation, moving low efficiency products out of the market. There's also ways of actually encouraging conservation based on sort of tiered usage, right? So you say everybody in the province actually needs this minimum amount of electricity, and that should be at this cost. And if you start having huge homes in Rosedale and you've got multiple appliances, so start paying extra for that, because why should the system be built out for your needs? So, and the same goes for industry, and I know in industry they do have a bit more of that tiered approach. So I think
does that discriminate against manufacturers though, who will need more energy?
You would have a different
regime.
It's a different regime. You can't compare residential with manufacturing. I agree with Mark that the circumstances around why industry is leaving the province isn't solely based around electricity. It's based on international competition, it's labor costs, it's all kinds of other factors. So again, it's very simplistic to just say, price of electricity, if we fix that, we fix our manufacturing sector. We don't.
I get you, but Don, if you're trying to get a smelter built in Northern Ontario, and there's one in Quebec already, and you realize that your prices for electricity in Northern Ontario are going to be, I don't know, what is it, 50%?
Double.
Okay, double than what you're going to pay in Quebec. I mean, you've shot yourself in the foot, haven't you?
That'll be a problem, but the smelter in Northern Ontario is going to depend on a whole host of economic factors. If we're thinking about the Ring of Fire,
One of which would be power prices.
one of which is power prices, another which is rail transport, road transport. There are huge decisions to be made about whether we're going to go forward with development up there. I don't know what's the best way to do that, other than you need to look at the whole set of costs and ask what's the benefit at the end of the road, and not pursue it unless it really actually makes economic sense for us, including the taxpayers and ratepayers who may wind up backstopping it or footing the bill for the infrastructure.
Sure. George?
It's just, it's a bit of a false comparator. We are never going to have electricity prices that are the same as Quebec and Manitoba. They have natural attributes with hydro that we just don't have. So the types of decisions that are being made are, I think, a little more incremental than that. So we're not going to have those prices, so we just have to deal with that. Not that you can just gratuitously increase the price of electricity, but we're not going to hit Quebec levels.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. To add one point on that, I mean, if you look actually at the North American comparison of both retail and commercial and industrial rates, Ontario is right in the middle of the road. It's not like we're off the charts on the high end.
No, but everybody remembers 40, 50 years ago when we had the lowest, right?
Yeah, but
when Ontario Hydro was all one company, we had the lowest, heavily subsidized power prices.
That was a completely hydraulic system
Right.
at that
Yeah.
stage.
It's a different time.
That was a different time.
Yeah.
I think, and that's an important point. For the first half of the 20th century, Ontario had very low power rates. We have the Niagara River, a huge flow and a big drop. We have other big rivers with large drops. We had cheap hydropower. Any monkey could have given us cheap electricity. I think that Sir Adam Beck was a wonderful fellow, and Ontario Hydro did well, but it wasn't hard with those natural assets. In the 1950s, we started building coal plants and nuclear plants and natural gas, and it turned out we're no better than anybody else at building coal plants and nuclear plants and gas-fired power plants. And so that transition from being wholly reliant on cheap hydro to having a mix like everybody else naturally drove our prices up. I think over the last decade, we have not watched costs very carefully. I was never happy about the Green Energy Act paying 80 cents for rooftop solar. 80 cents for electricity we could generate from a gas plant for 10 cents, or I'm sure Quebec Hydro would have sold us lots of power for way less than 80 cents a kilowatt hour.
The idea was to create a new industry.
But a new industry that produces something nobody wants, namely hugely expensive power. I would have waited on the solar. The costs have been coming down, I agree. Someday they'll be competitive. Right, with the new prices, we're paying 40 cents and 30 cents, roughly, for new solar power.
Cheaper, but still too much.
It's cheaper, but still too much. When it gets down to 20 cents,
call you.
Then let's start installing some, get some experience, and see how the costs come down.
Can I just confirm, are you basically saying Adam Beck was any monkey?
I was certainly not saying that. Okay. Wonderful fellow. I'm just saying, had we not had Sir Adam Beck, we would still have had lower power prices.
Okay. We're down to our last few minutes here, and I want to get all of you on this. This document, does this represent for our province, and frankly for the government in place right now, a new distinctive path or approach to dealing with our energy needs? Paul?
It's an improved plan compared to the old plan, but it needs to go further for our manufacturers and industrial. And we really need to be smart about demand management and conservation. We really need to flatten the load profile, because 37% of the grid is underutilized because it's built primarily for peaking for the summer air conditioning peak. And it's much cheaper to put in thermal storage for air conditioning to flatten that load profile than it is to put electrical storage in. If you think electrical rates are expensive now, just wait till they start rolling out electrical storage, and it'll double, triple the price of power.
George, is this a new distinctive path for the province?
In a couple of ways, there are some innovations in here. One is it is more flexible. So the government is saying, here are the targets, but they're more aspirational. In the past, they built to meet those targets whether we needed the power or not. So I think they're showing some more flexibility. I think that's an improvement, and that's different than what they've done in the past. The other thing is something we haven't really talked about, but what makes us different is the government is now committed to have some greater transparency around the information of electricity supply and demand, which should seem pretty straightforward. And you asked why we haven't had this for years. I think there's no excuse for not having it. But to be able to report every year on this is supply, this is demand, here's the gap, or this is why we're long or short, and therefore might have to buy new capacity or not, I think that's remarkable. We haven't had that in our system. Bringing that into our system could lead to some improved decision making in the process, and will stop continuing overbuilds.
Don?
I think this is an incremental document. The government has been changing direction over the last year or so with regard to electricity, and I think this solidifies some of that change and pushes it forward. It's not a new world, but I think it's an improvement from the direction we were going in. We have some cost increase that's built into the system now. We committed to it as a result of the Green Energy Act. We can't get out of that.
Right.
But going forward, we have to watch costs. Everything we do, we have to watch costs.
Judith?
Well, I think it could have gone a lot further on renewables. I disagree. The incremental cost of renewables is really very small compared to the cost of other generation to date. I think what renewables and distributed generation allow, and the one thing the report does acknowledge is the role First Nations have to play in the energy system going forward. What it doesn't acknowledge is the role that communities, individuals, farmers, citizens have in benefiting from the system from an investment perspective.
Mark, last 30 seconds to you.
I think, yes, we have to watch cost, but we need to be paying attention on the nuclear side, not the renewable side, because that's been the driver of the cost increase. I still think there is greater acknowledgement of uncertainty here, but we're still engaged fundamentally in an exercise in political management, which is what the title implies.
Political management, meaning get the gas plants off the front page?
Well, much more in terms of balancing the interests of the different constituencies, as opposed to thinking about things in terms of overall costs and in an even bigger picture context, contributions to sustainability in terms of economic, social, environmental performance between the different competing options. And that part of the conversation we don't seem to be really having, and we don't seem to have any forum where that conversation can happen either.
We were happy to provide a forum for this conversation tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming into TVO tonight and helping us out with this.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.